December 30th, 2024 at 6:30 PM. And if we can have roll call, please.
Mayor Henderson,
Present.
President Dumont, Councilman Mason,
Here.
Councilman Pingborn,
Here.
Councilwoman Harrier,
Here.
Councilman Wharton,
Here.
Councilwoman Henry.
Here.
All right, this is a special meeting. On the agenda is a review and approval of ordinance 1230-2401, which is our 2025 operating budget, and review and approval of ordinance 1230-2402, which are mayor's court fees and fines. And anything else we would normally discuss during council meeting. So let's go ahead and go into the 2025 budget. Everyone should have a copy of this. Now, this is something that we probably started talking about in July. If you remember, I came and said, this is what I'm working on, kind of went over any costs. At that point, anything new I was adding or changing. So that's kind of how that progresses. And then for the next 6 months, I work on that, and then you guys adopt it. If you want, you can also decline it, change it, whatever you guys want to do. Just in general, what we do is we just look at our revenue streams for the revenue side. You know, what do we normally get on average? Do we see any upward or downward trends? And then, you know, plug those numbers in. Appropriations do the same thing, and then of course, you know, do we have any new spending? We got to add that in there. Or, you know, if we spent something last year that we're going to plan to spend this year, we take that out, come up with these numbers. Now, just government 101, you know, we can run a deficit. However, we have to have cash to cover that deficit. We're not the federal government, meaning if we don't have $1 trillion in our checking account, we can borrow it from China. We don't have those resources. We can only go into the deficit based on the amount of cash that we have carried over from other years. So carryover is just savings. That's a simple word for savings, but a municipality is not allowed to save money, right? That's not what we're here for. But you have to have rainy day funds, so that's like what our carryover is. So just kind of put that in perspective. So this right here is just the overview of all the other spreadsheets. You know, we broke it down by the different accounts. Have special rules based on what they can or cannot be spent on. Overall, of course, can be spent on anything for the village. You know, it's unrestricted. There's not a lot of rules. We anticipate about $391,000 in revenue. Of course, that comes from property taxes, income taxes, zoning fees, contracts, you know, all that other stuff, and we'll kind of go into that, but that's how we come up with that number. Appropriations is everything we spend on. Majority of our outlay of cash is payroll. Like any company, payroll is your largest expenditure. We're no different. Column E, transfers in, transfers out. This is something when I first started taking over, the general fund fed every account. So the general fund could not spend money because it was substituting money in all these other ones. For the past 5 years, we've not had to do ins and outs. Like we were balancing within each account now, which was one of our goals, and we've been there for quite a few years. So again, that's what that is. Let's just say that the target revenue, you see that they're in a deficit of $3,800, but we have enough cash from carryover to cover that. If we didn't, we'd have to take that out of the general fund to be able to appropriate that much money. So we would do a negative out of general fund and then a positive, and that right there would impact your carryover numbers, everything like that. So, but we don't have that, but I do just want to describe it since it's on there. And then column F is our projected carryover for the end of the year. Again, that number will change drastically because, again, these are budgetary numbers. These aren't, really what we're going to get, really what we're going to spend. And depending on what happens in the world, these numbers can go one way or the other, as you guys have seen. But it gives you an idea, like, where are we at? So, this next column over here is, when I first took over, we discussed what do we want to carry over each year? How much money do we want to save? So we came up with a magical number of 10%. There's no law that says we have to carry over 10%. We don't have to carry over nothing. So internally, we just like, let's make 10% a goal and see what we get. And at that time, 10% was achievable. But because cost of everything keeps going up, but our revenue stays stagnant or goes down, that definitely changes this is what we're carrying over, only $11,000. So column I just shows you the difference of what the difference between it, and then kind of where we're at. We're only going to project $3 general fund accounts. All right, which isn't bad. I mean, this isn't something to concern ourselves with. It's just kind of an idea. We set a goal. Where we're at with that goal. And you'll see once we finalize the year, Penny and I will come back with some reports and give you like 2 numbers of what we carried that to compare with the original budget. So if you do a review of this whole process, you'll see like the budget versus actual and how it's drastic. It's not drastic, but, how the numbers do change and how they impact each other. And then the last column of the year is the end of year as of December 1st. Remember, we don't finalize December to the end of this month, so I can't give you those numbers. So this is as December 1st, what we had on hand in each of these accounts. It just shows, like, if we're in a deficit here on Park and Rec of $3,800, we have $2,300 in carryover. So we have enough cash to support that negative carryover. So that way you also can get a picture and just say, okay, at one point maybe council will be like, okay, Jason, you keep doing this, and we went from 23,000, now we're only down to 5. Obviously, we want to change something, so it kind of gives you guys something to look at and say, okay, when is your threshold of saying enough is enough? Or, something needs to be changed, that I'm not doing something that I should be to, keep those numbers up or whatever. General fund, I'll just, warn everyone, general fund is the hardest one to manage because everything comes out of it, and it's the most volatile, meaning, we don't know from year to year. We have our trends and everything else built. But one, COVID, our taxes dropped. People here that live in the village probably won't serve unless there are people that would be laid off. So our numbers change. Okay, so that really throws us off. And it has a huge impact to where all the other ones are self-supporting or property tax based to where you don't have that volatility. It's going to remain stagnant unless something happens with the county assessments or something like that, which you can plan for that because that's not something they do at the last second. So that's kind of the picture of this. And kind of, once we do this spreadsheet, that's how we build this and what you guys pass. And I do want to take some time to kind of just go through a couple of these accounts in depth, and then the rest of them is just like, here's the numbers, because they're all built the same way. But here's all the different ones. The ones blacked out are accounts that are, they're not accounts that we should carry over on. Like here we have grant construction. There should never be a carryover because that's a temporary account. So we're not going to plan for carryover. When we get into the newly established accounts that were created, again, we should not have something out there that says we want to carry over X amount of dollars, right? It's just to help pay for the stuff that we're doing. We are going to carry over some money, but we don't have a threshold on it. And then our water sewer, they're just, they're funds that, in and out. We don't have any, they're not ours. We're just the caretakers of that fund, so. And then down here is the totals, and then water total of the ones that aren't blacked out. Here, that number's way off, but there's a lot of factors that play into that. Primarily, our grant construction, because remember we could have that $100,000 loan that gave us $100,000 here, plus we'll get a $100,000 reimbursement, but we'll pay out $200,000 because of that equation, and that really impacts our numbers. You take that out, and it's more realistic numbers. Any questions on that? That's just kind of how things get rolled up and built into this. So I'm going to go through general fund just a little bit more detail, just because it's the most complex and has all the different variables. And then the rest of them, we'll kind of just go through it, and I'll just, briefly talk about them, just to give you an idea. Again, I think this is just a good refresher for everyone. Of course, when you're new, kind of introduce you a little bit more into the financing. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, but if it's too try to keep them color coded so you can go back and forth. One thing that I haven't done, just because some of this stuff is last minute, we are projected to get a cemetery this year. So those cemetery numbers are in here, but it's not in our pie chart because I just haven't had a chance to do it. So there are some that have numbers that aren't included over here. But, I'll get that corrected out for you guys. But here's, basically on the top is what we're gonna forecast to get in for 2025, and on the top for our 1,000 account, which is general fund, property taxes of about $58,000, income tax of about $160,000. So those are our two primary sources of money for the general fund. The other local is auto tags. So when you buy tags, there are 4 different types of taxes on your auto tags. One of them comes into our general fund. So that's what that's for. And then state and local government distribution is $9,000. So for when you pay property taxes, you also get some type of rebates or reductions depending on what the state laws are, like rollbacks and things like that. The state then makes up that difference for us. So that's kind of what that is. So that's when we pay a discount, the state's reimbursing the village to make it. We didn't enact those laws, right? The state did on our behalf. So they give us extra money to make up those liquor fees. This right here are liquor fees from anything within the corporation, which would be the Marathon, the Dollar General, and the restaurant. Property tax allocation. Oh, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Property tax allocation, that's the difference. Local government distribution, this is part of the state tax that they allocate to villages, and it's a percentage based off of your population, basically. It's a bigger equation, but that's like the root of it. Many years ago, before we even had an income tax in Pleasantville, we received about $70,000 to $90,000 a year in that account. That's what we ran on. We didn't need an income tax. Then Governor, it's been 4 or 5 governors ago, he came in and he wanted to balance our budget about 15 years ago. And how he did that is he took away all the money from cities, villages, and towns. That's how he balanced his budget. He got his promise made to his voters, but then that took our $70,000, $90,000 down to $9,000 or whatever, and is what caused a lot of villages, including ourselves, to start an income tax to make up that difference, type thing. So, special assessments, this is just where we assess people for mowing, past due water accounts, things like that, past due sewer accounts, that just gets thrown into the general fund for those special assessments, for the mowing portion, sorry. This line item I added because there's a potential for a police contractor too. So it's a $0 amount because we don't have a contract in hand, but I went ahead and added the numbers just so we have it on there. And so if we do get any contracts, it's already set up in the accounting system. The other contracts, this is for billing services for Walnut Creek Sewer District. So as everyone's aware, we own our own water system, but we do not own the sewer system. They make up their own rates, they make up their own rules. We contract with them to do their billing for Village of Pleasantville. They contract with Thurston to do their Thurston consumer. So that's about what we charge them every year to basically do billing and read meters and all that stuff. One great thing about that, Corey's to thank for that. It was about $6,000 a year, roughly, I think is what it was. We had some tiffs back and forth, and then Corey was able to, being a member of Walnut Creek and council, she was able to be our liaison, and we went and done a cost study, and it really showed that we needed to raise that $6,000. That $6,000 was an old boys number, where it's just 80 years ago, $6,000 sounded like a good number, but that's been the same number year after year after year, and anytime someone touched it, everyone's feathers got ruffled because, you can't raise that because it's what we've always done. Well, we pay people more, minimum wages went up, electricity goes up, you have to account for all that stuff, so. But we're able to do that last year, and so that's really helped us out. Next is the cemetery. Sorry, I lose my mouse on this one. Sale of lots, grave opening fees, foundation permits, and other. You guys have not passed the legislation on what those fees are gonna be, but I've already started drafting it. And these are just numbers to plug in there for right now. because we really can't take any action until we actually receive the cemetery, but it's also like, once we get it, it's gonna be like this, we gotta be ready to go. So I kinda have everything ready to go, so once we start that conversation, you guys can pass your ordinances, establish the fees. I've already done the research on what everyone else is charging us, or charging, not that means that's what we have to charge, it's just to get an idea of, what other ones, charge. And then, what I've heard through, I've not seen a document that says this, but there's about $30,000 of cash that comes with that cemetery. Because the cemetery is, even though it's a privately held property, there's money that is incurred operating a cemetery. The owners can't just keep it, there's state rules. It has to go to preserve that property for perpetual care, so that's what that $30,000 is. So that's where that number came from. Court costs and court fines, we did have those in their own account, because when we first threw out mayor's court, no one likes to give you what the rules are, right? It's just like, oh, you can do this, 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 or that, choose one. And then when you choose it, then they tell you, oh, you chose the wrong one because of blah, blah, blah. So we just kind of set everything up in their own account, and then our goal was to do what we call a sweep. And then at the end of the year, we would sweep that account down to zero and move it to general fund, because that's where that money has to go at the end. Just so we had the money divided, someone asked questions. Well, now that we went through it a year, we've got our feet wet, we're just gonna move it directly into the general fund, because now that we know that's where it has to go, the real ordinances that have been passed and that you'll be passing tonight, it'll clear up all the mud to where it's just, that's the easiest way forward. And we don't have to worry about moving money around and things like that. That does not include computer fees, which we'll talk about later. Zoning permits, 1,000, cable franchise fees, so everyone who has Spectrum probably sees a local charge, local contract, whatever they call it. We get about $4,000 a year from Spectrum. They're their only cable company that has lines, and per state law, they have to have a line. So if you have AT&T through a satellite, we can't charge them a franchise fee. According to state law, it has to be like physical lines. So Spectrum is the only one that has that in the village. So we get about $4,000 from them. We don't establish the rate; the state establishes the rate. Is how that works. Right-of-way permits. Last year, you guys enacted an ordinance, and we contracted with Right-of-way Solutions. And basically, all the other utilities that come through, like our gas companies that tear up our sidewalks and our roads and they never come back and fix it, they're now gonna be paying fees each year to us so we can afford to fix that kind of stuff. So if they don't, we have money that they paid us to pay for, and that's kind of what that is. And that's what our projected amount, will be our first year on it. So again, that $5,000 is just a stab in the dark, because that's what we think we're gonna get. It could be much less, it could be much more. We have no history on it. Interest, that's just your banking interest. Donations of about $20,000, and you see my note on there from Nick Garver donating back his net pay. So what Nick Garver has asked for and that we've agreed to is he just wants paid into his police and fire pension retirement to keep him active. So that way, when he does go to retire, like he's an active member in there. And you can't just say, oh, I'm gonna give you $500 state, and I want you to do that. You actually have to pay him a salary, and then that's where you come up, because it's an equation, it's a percentage of his net income. Again, he's not doing this for the money, but he wants paid into that. So we figured about $5,000 a year paying into that would keep him active and be a good amount to invest. Again, it's not a big help to him, but for what he wants it for the health benefits and all that, that's a good starting point. So we assume of whatever his salary, I think it comes out to be like 25,000 or whatever, we'll get to that. 20,000 of it he'll be donating back, because again, he won't donate back the taxes we take out or the pension. He's just gonna donate back the net pay. So that's a rough estimate of where we get that. Other miscellaneous is just anything that we get money in from a random, you find $20 on the street, give it to Penny, she can collect it into the general fund on that, or someone gives us a donation and we don't have a donation account, or someone gives us something weird that's not a normal account, that's where that's at. And the last two special items is our festivals. One thing that you'll see here, because we have no outlay of money for the festival or the Queens, so we just say we're gonna bring in $28,000 of festival donations. We're gonna pay out $28,000 in festival expenses, but the festival has to cover every penny. So if they spend 25, they gotta bring in 25. Unless they come back to council and say, hey, we're short, or do you guys mind, giving extra money? Because in the past, council has given $4,000 to them when they first started up, but because they do so well covering their costs, this year we decided not to give them any extra money type thing. One, because our budget really doesn't allow for it, but, they're doing a decent job on their own. So any questions on the revenue side? And again, this listing will be very similar as we go through all of them, and I won't go into depth on those. So here's the expenses side of it. So police salary, that's total. This also includes hours that would average out to, I believe, 12 hours per week. So that way we get a little bit of extra paid coverage, because right now we're all, what's the word I want to use? Auxiliary, to where they only have to give 8 hours a month, which isn't a lot. But we get a little bit more coverage, and when they're auxiliary, we really can't dictate, I want you in here Friday night from midnight to 6 a.m. because they're auxiliary. They're donating their time. You're gonna get it when you can. To where if we have some money available for part-time, we can say, these are the hours we have available, post it, and if someone wants to work them, type thing. Doesn't mean that we're actually gonna use any of it or all of it, but again, it was just cash that we can put out there, so we do have the opportunity to do a little bit more coverage. And here's that police pension fund type thing. But police OPERS, that's Ohio Public Employees Retirement System, and police Medicare, because public employees do not pay into Social Security, they pay into OPERS, so that's like their Social Security. Other personal services, this right here is for everyone else's payroll that's coming out of the general fund, and I'll show you how payroll is broken out too as we get down there a little bit further. But for the general fund side, it's about $70,000, OPERS 11,000, Medicare 1,200, type thing. So that, again, same as the police, just for other employees, because police has to be by itself. You have to label it by themselves, and everyone else we can kind of throw in together, except for Penny. Penny will have her own line items down here that you'll see. Principal, this right here is just the lease for car one of $500 a month that we have for that one. Workman's comp is about $2,000 a year. Insurance and bonding, so this is insurance and bonding for all of the village, is about $22,000. So that's what our annual insurance cost is for the village. Payment to another government agency, you'll see this a couple times, but this, and I'll kind of talk about accounts a little bit later, but this is for your Board of Health fee. So to participate in the Board of Health, if we don't participate in the Board of Health, we have to have our own Board of Health, meaning we have to have doctors and nurses and like stuff we can't afford. So counties set up a county Board of Health, and we pay a fee based off of a percentage off of our allocations through the auditor's office, and then that's what they deem our annual amount is. That changes year after year, and they'll give that to us probably, what do we get that, like August or something like that?
Yes.
So they give us that number before our budgets do, so we know what we're paying. Other professional technical services, so this is any type of service, professional services, so engineering fees, mowing, wells pest control, things like that, that go into there. Again, here you have two lines for cemetery, grave openings, and indigent cremation fees. So if someone does die, and this is something that happens today, we actually do this 2 or 3 times a year. If someone passes away within the village of Pleasantville that doesn't have a home address somewhere else, so someone that's homeless, and let's just say they pass away in our park, we have to take care of their body. So, every village, every township, someone has to take care of the dead. So they call those indigent fees. We cremate anyone that falls into that type scenario. So, and we have, I don't want to say it's a contract, but a verbal contract with Smith Funeral Home, Smith Johnson from Baltimore and Lancaster. They have their own crematory here in Fairfield County, and they charge us $1,000 a body, and it basically just covers the gas to be able to burn the body. They don't make a profit off of it. And the other caveat, let's just say they live here, and I'm just going to use examples. Let's just say they're a renter. They have no assets, they have no vehicle, they have no nothing, they have no family, they have no sisters, they have no nothing, and they pass away, they have no insurance policy. Again, someone has to take care of them, and that's usually what we fall into. We don't have people just dying at our parks. But it's usually people that are destitute, that does not have any assets, we have to take care of the body, so. So again, we get a couple of those a year. Now, the state will reimburse us up to the $1,000, I believe. That's why we set our number at 1,000. If we do the paperwork within 30 days and why there's money in that account, because the state just sets aside $100,000 or whatever their magical number is each year, and when it's gone, it's gone. So, you know, we've been lucky, I think most all the times they've been reimbursed. But they've not reimbursed us for it. So, again, there's the festival and the festival's queens, again, those numbers match, so it doesn't true zero effect on our account. Supplies, that's just, you know, supplies needed for the village. This is our contract with, Rowe, so I talked about the right of way with the utilities. This is what he charges the village to be able to do that, because he's the one filing the paperwork, make sure that, everyone's put on notice that they need to pay us, and he does most of the villages within Fairfield County. Next section here is your pay for council, mayor, and then we pay into Social Security, because as elected officials, we get to choose. Now, when I say we get to choose, you don't get to choose individually. Council as a board chooses whether they pay into Social Security or OPERS, and council has historically always done Social Security. So just in case anyone ever wants to change that, but unless you're a state employee somewhere else, it makes no sense to put yourself into OPERS now, because that little bit of money is really not going to help you. So it just goes into Social Security. Right here, these are utilities for just general use buildings, so this room, the office, things like that, things that aren't connected to a specific account, like the parks, like community center, the pool, that has an account that they're tied to. Postage, this is just postage for general mail that goes out of the village during the year. UAN fees, this is an annual fee for the accounting system that we use for the state lines. Website, our website. You know, just for the office. You'll see office supplies many times, because office supplies are broken down. You know, you'll even see it here under Mayor's Court. Mayor's Court has a need for their own office supplies, so you break that out even further. But here you'll see Mayor's Court, something new this year. Because everything is coming out of the general fund now, we can justify a part of Sam's wages to come out of that account. Again, it's still general fund. It's not a special account. It's just how you allocate your money. So we bring in X on Mayor's Court. It has to be justified why we charge that fee. Well, it's to help pay for Sam's time, and she spends about half of her hours working on Mayor's Court, whether it's, you know, entering the tickets, preparing for Mayor's Court, you know, researching whatever, you know, needs to be done, and then her time spent actually in Mayor's Court. The $5,200, that is for a magistrate and prosecutor. Magistrate is contracted, which is Kylie Keish. We've only had to use her once, because most all the cases I handle. And just so everyone's aware, I have to go to school for that. I have to get a certificate every year to be able to hold Mayor's Court. So if I quit tomorrow, I die tomorrow, whoever takes this seat cannot run Mayor's Court. That's not how the law works. They have to have training done before they can do it. So then Kylie would have to come in and run your Mayor's Court until that person is certified. They don't have to become certified either. If they say, hey, I don't want nothing to do with it, then it's Kylie that does it, or someone like her, type thing. It's not something that's mandated onto a mayor. It's an option that's there, and to help keep our costs down, I took the class. The village pays for it. I think it's $500 a year, if I remember right, and it's a one-day class, to where I can hear all cases and including OVIs for your first offense type thing. Here's Penny's salary. Again, she's her own line item. So there's her annual salary, OPERS, Medicare, things like that. Travel and transportation, that's reimbursement to either Sam or Penny if they have to run to the bank or do something for the village and they use their own vehicle. Tax collection fees, these are just fees, either, you'll see this a couple times, whether it's through the state, the county, or through RETA, because again, no one does anything for free. So that's just how they're accounted for. Legal, this is for any other legal case that's not related to mayor's court, that we would pay our solicitor. Our solicitor and prosecutor are the same person. Again, tax collection fees, this is our RITA fees. This is what we pay RITA each year for them to process the W-2s and reporting and all that. Professional technical services, just our copy leases, IT leases, things like that. Again, the other account is just when you don't know where to put it or it doesn't have its own category, that's where it goes into. For our loans, for our first payment of 2025, because again, you guys enacted an ordinance that we're going to set up their salary account, but there won't be money in those accounts for the first payment. So general fund and water fund are going to continue making that payment for the first year, because those are due twice a year, once in February, once in August.
Yes.
So the February payment, obviously there won't be money in those accounts to be able to make those payments. This is what we have, this is the loan for the Pleasantville Road purchase, Pleasantville Road project purchase. It'll actually be paid off this year, so this right here will go away. And then this right here is our interest payment for the $100,000 loan that we took out. So it's, so any questions on that? Yes, and we are only gonna pay that once, because we opted to do just the final payment, so.
And
yep.
then the property on Pleasantville Road, is that 6 acres?
That's the 6 acres, yeah. Yep. All right. Any questions on that? Like, that's the most in-depth I'm gonna go on any of these accounts, just because it's the largest, kinda has a lot of different things. I'm just gonna touch on all the other ones, because they're all billed about the same way. So just highlights gas tax, so we get money from fuel purchases through the state. It's not based on the gas that's sold in town. It's a state equation. So the gas tax that they collect on every gallon sold, there's an equation that is our allotment for them, for that. License tax, again, I told you there's 4 different taxes on a license renewal. This is the other one. It goes into the streets. We actually have 3 of them. We have the general, the streets, and the permissive. But that's for the streets. That's where it goes, and then your interest on that. Then down here is basically utilities, sewer, electric, gas, phone. You see those in orange. Other personal services and OPERS and Medicaid, that is employee cost. So again, we break out, our employees based on averages of where they spend their time to come up with these numbers. Again, supplies and materials. Really be used on State Route 188 to do any type of repairs. We're not allowed to improve lanes, but let's just say there's a pothole that pops up that the state didn't take care of. They give us X amount of dollars a year to go fix that pothole for them, since it's inside the village. Typically, they tell us even if there is a pothole in the lane and they haven't gotten to it, don't touch it, because they have a special, because of liability issues, if we would do something wrong, the liability would still go back on them. So they would rather us not touch it. So this is usually used for tree removal, and we had I don't know if you guys remember this, but 10 years ago we had that huge sinkhole?
Yeah.
Where they used to have wells in town for fire prevention, and they would just build like a big vault. They thought they filled them all in, and then the 50s, well, I went to that one, and the top caved in. It was right on the edge of the so we used some of this money, and then the state, because we had to fill them with concrete, and I think it was like $100,000 worth of concrete.
There's a bunch of concrete.
The state paid for most of it, but we had to pay for some of it, because that's kind of what that money's used for, to help pay for those type of things. So, it doesn't get a lot of use. Again, we're doing tree removal on Main Street, is where most of this will go. Again, you have a property tax on this, same thing, estimated revenue on the taxes, allocation, we talked about that. Daily pool admissions, seasonal pool passes, so we kind of break everything down, based on what it is. And you'll see in parentheses, I have pool, fuel drain, and that's just where our income comes from. And then for expenses, again, it's mostly utilities is where all that goes for, other than our park employees, which is our lifeguards. So that's all lifeguards. So when people say, the pool can't cost you that much money, $25,000 just in labor for the year is what we're anticipating. That doesn't include your electric, because your electric is, $3,500 at the pool for that short 3 months. So You know, it costs a lot of money to operate that pool, but again, if you see, we're only going $3,800 in the hole this year to have a pool, which isn't a bad thing, because the kids need something in this town, to do, and that's about the only thing that we have to be able to give them, other than playgrounds and stuff like that. Police, okay, so one thing I do want to say about police, when we talk about the police fund, this is not all of police activity. This is money from a property tax, that was passed back in the 1980s. That's a perpetual fund that it can never be changed, and you don't ever want to change it, because if you ever touch this, it no longer becomes perpetual, and you have to pass it every 5 or 6 years. So back when they first passed this, police and fire levies were permanent, meaning that you didn't have to take it back to the voters. So this is a permanent, perpetual tax, and as long as you never touch it, it will remain there forever, as long as the state doesn't change their laws. However, the downside of that is it's based off of when it was passed. So I think it was passed in 1986, so it's based off of home value in 1986. Okay, so that's the ups and downs. But again, it's one of those accounts we never have to worry about it. Just leave it alone, type thing. And so that money that comes in, basically because we have a police department, it does not pay for uniforms, training, supplies, repairs, and operating supplies and repairs. Just so you know, that's where your fuel comes in. So a lot of that's gas for the vehicles, type thing. So that's just kind of where that's at and how we're treating it. So all labor comes out of general, and all the miscellaneous comes out of the police until we eat up that 20-some thousand. Does that make sense? Alright, permissive, this right here is another tax, that's levied through the state, that they have a equation that we get from them. So it's $10,000, and then the interest is about 15, so it gives us 1,200. It basically pays for our street lights. That's all it pays for. So street lights run us about $11,000, $12,000 a year, to operate that. So that's just what we use that money for. Grant construction, we talked about that. That's just a $100,000 loan to finish off the tower. This will show our payment to the vendors, and then our payment back to the principal when we go to pay off that note this year. Water accounts, kind of like general fund. It has a little bit more, but almost the same. I won't touch on it a lot. But you know, it's tap fees and then rents is what they call it. So when you purchase water from the village, it's actually labeled rent through the state. So they're rent fees. We are told to put $200,000 in by the powers that be. We don't bring in $200,000. I do want to but we're told we have to plug this in or something similar to this. Last year, we bring in about 170-ish, 175-ish. So there's, you know, just so you know, like, that's not what we plan on bringing in. Not saying that it can't happen, because again, you build more houses, or people use more water, or whatever the case may be, it can hit there, but that's the one number that really isn't built off of historical information. It's basically the state last year, one of their agencies came in and said, this is the number you're bringing in here. So that's what we do. And then your expenses, again, postage, this is the water plant is about 12,000 a year. Sewer at the water plant is 10,000. Not because they flush the toilet that much, but when we recycle water to clean the filters, that goes into the sewer, so we have to pay for that. So that's why it's still billed the same amount, or same way, it's per gallon. Supplies, that includes our salt, chemicals, all that stuff. So, and then here's your loan for that first payment of the OPWC. So I think that's pretty much it. The main ones, you have your water capacity impacts for created, so they're in there. They're just paying for loans. Water deposit, basically if you pay a deposit, it's not our money, it's just your money. We just hold the money. So just to make it easy, we just say we bring in 3,000, we spend 3,000, just kind of keep that pretty, I guess is a good way of saying it. Unclaimed money, so if the village writes you a check and you don't cash it within the amount of time and you never put that back to us, we have to hold that money for 5 years before we can put it back into the general fund. So, or before we actually have to advertise it out there to say, hey, you've got money owed to you, and if you don't collect it within a certain period of time, then it goes back into the general fund. So this is just for, things like that. We don't have a line account, we don't have a lot of that, but again, we just plug numbers in there just so we have it in case it happens. Walnut Creek Fund, this is just the sewer part of the bill. This is what we bring in, this is what we say we are going to spend out. So again, this is just a net zero, money in, money out. It's not our money. Mayor's Court, this right here is still a fund, even though the court costs are gonna go into the general fund. The state mandates a $3 and a $10 fee for computer funds that are local. So the $10 fee is for Sam's computer and software. So that basically pays for our software that we use for the mayor's court. And then the $3 fee is for the courtroom. So if we, let's just say I want my own computer for the courtroom, there's money for that, or, something to that effect, type thing. And that's all it could be used for, is something that is relatable to a computer, whether it's software, hardware, whatever. And again, here's where we have it. Baldwin Group is who our vendor is for mayor's group software, mayor's court software. $100 each for equipment, just for computers, but by definition, equipment could be computers, desks, chairs. But state law says desks and chairs are not part of that type fund. Walnut Creek deposit, again, we take your sewer deposits, same thing as water. So any questions? That's pretty much the budget. That's how we came up with these numbers. Boring enough? So,
That's interesting.
and then payroll. So here's all of our employees plus overtime. Police department are doing for the state. That's what he said is $5,000 a year into his pension. And here's 12 hours a week for a part-time officer, $20 an hour, which will cost us about $12,000. Meaning they have $12,000 for a part-time officer when he needs it. Hire a part-time officer, he can come to us and say, hey, I want to bring this person on as a part-time status, because in order to collect that, they have to be put on part-time status. We can't just say, oh, this is tomorrow, we're gonna pay you, that's not how it works. So we make them do with people that we have part-time status for. Doesn't mean they're all getting paid, it just means they're available to be able to use this money. Does that make sense? Okay. Alright. And over here's how we break it out: general, streets, water. Just, again, how did I come up with those numbers for each of those accounts? You just take their annual, and then for like general, and this is based on each individual employee. I'm just gonna take Tony as an example. 30% of his pay is our general, because 30% of the time he's just working in miscellaneous things for the village. 10% or 20% of the time he's working directly on the streets, patching potholes, snow removal, things like that. And then 50% of the time he's at the water pump. So that's kind of how we come up with the numbers. Now, are these exact? There's always a change. This is just time and motion study type thing. That's kind of how we came up with it. All right. So if there's no questions, you guys have the ordinance in front of you. And this just shows you the appropriations. The ordinance does not care about revenue. The state only wants to know what you're gonna spend your money on, not where you're getting your money. So if there's no questions, do I hear a motion to approve this ordinance with this spreadsheet as an attachment, and that needs to go into the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Okay?
Wait, what, say that again?
I'll say that. So this ordinance and this spreadsheet here will be the attachment. So Penny should have the one we signed. Everyone else just has this, right?
Okay, so I'll need to have a copy of that to put with my combined.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and we'll talk about that here in about 5 minutes, but, so,
This will also go in the drawer too, the whole thing.
cause this shows
Yeah,
you
that's
your,
on that.
Yeah.
the appropriation is at the fund level, the $1,000, or the 1,000 fund, the 2011 fund for streets, that's at the fund level. This is at the, granular level, based on salaries, whatever. We'll talk about that in a minute, why that's important, but that's why this needs to be passed with that. The county wants to see this, the county doesn't wanna see that. The state wants, auditors wanna see this, they don't care about this. And how we've done it in the past kinda created some confusion.
So we just do both.
Yeah, we're gonna cover our butts.
Okay.
All right,
CYA.
so Sarah made the motion
Sarah made a motion.
and Bill second.
Bill second.
All right, roll call.
The sheet's gone. President DeWalt, Councilman Mason,
Yes.
Councilman Payborn,
Yes.
Councilwoman Carrier,
Yes.
Councilman Morton,
Yes.
Councilwoman Henry.
Yes.
All right, next is ordinance 1230-2402, an ordinance to establish fees for the marshal and amend the mayor's court waiverable speeding fine and the mayor's court fee schedules and the declaration of an emergency. So everyone has a copy of this. Now that we're a year into our mayor's court, we've looked at our costs and things like that. And I'm not gonna go through like what I did here with the mayor's court. There's, again, when we talk about court fines, the state has their fine, fees that we have to pay, the county has their fees, BMV has everyone has their thing in it. So if you pay a $140 fine, we only get 25 of it really are fine, and about $70 of it is probably, no, 70 is, 50 of it is probably local, and everything else goes to DMV, state, whatever. So, we're going to up our local by $5 to help cover some of our cost, for the mayor's court. That's what this does. So when we talk about those local costs, it's not the fine as a whole, it's just that portion that says it's gonna go to the general fund. It's also cleaning up the verbiage, because when we first established the mayor's court, the mayor himself can establish this without council's approval. Because when you guys authorize the mayor's court, you also authorize me to run it completely without, I don't wanna say without say-so from you, but like you gave me full power over it, which then allows me to approve my own fee schedule, because that's how normally they work. I never liked that, so I'm giving power back to you guys, because it's also that checks and balance that I believe in. At some point you may say, why are we paying, why is the fine $300 for a 20 over speed limit? Well, if you give me full authority, I'm allowed to do that, but this kind of gives you back control, all right? So you're telling me it has to be this on certain things, and that's our local cost, and you're also changing it to where it's gonna go into the general fund. In addition, the other thing that we can pass for just the miscellaneous stuff, like if we have to do someone wants a continuance, or they want to do payments, who's involved with that, I agree to those, right? You gave me the authority. I'm not leaving the ordinance for you. That way, if I ever want to change it, I have to come back to you. Again, it's a better way of doing government, right? One person will not be able to do everything. And as we learn through mayor's court, I'll have more of this where I come back and say, you guys have unilateral power over this, which is normal, like the state allows for that, and that's how normally villages run it. But I want to give power back to you, because it should be hard to say no, all right? So that's what and then in addition to that, section 4, we took our speeding fines for the waiverable off of what the county themselves charge. So now that we have time in, we've noticed, kind of where we're at with different things where we should be. And it's not to make money, it's to make sure people understand the importance of not speeding in our village, right? Because we are now starting to see people that their first $140 fine didn't get their attention, because $140 to them is no big deal. I'm not saying that happens a lot, but it's like, okay, so what's our next step? So we look outside of the county, look at other police departments, whether village, city, and all that, and they've broken it down into smaller segments. We're gonna have like 0 to 20, 20 to 40, and 40 and over, or something like that. So now we have it 0 to 5, 6 to 10, so basically 5 mile per hour increments. And then what the fine will be, fine plus court cost. So if you're going 15 over, instead of a $25 fine, now it's a $55 fine plus your court cost. State fees, DMV fees, or local fees that are on here. To try to get people's attention, like, hey, again, it's not about making money, it's about getting people's attention. So that's what's in there. And these numbers came from looking at other cities and villages, not just in Fairfield County, in this area, and that kind of, because again, you can go out and do your own research and probably come up with different numbers, because everyone does their own thing. We just kind of pulled some and said, okay, what makes sense for us? So any questions over that?
What is the court fee for just speed without the fine?
Okay, so that's a trick question. So let me grab my spreadsheet here.
Well, it says a moving violation, $68, so is it $68 plus the whatever?
It was $115, Jason.
Yeah, well, I just want to show them, like, all the different fees. 'Cause it's kind of hard to explain and to give you a good idea of what it is. So if we were here to move the violation.
Look, see which one's flashing. Can't see this. The other problem.
Remember, I was talking about all the different fees.
Is it back on the front?
So here's where we were at the top line, and here's where we're gonna be. So again, we're just raising it $5. Okay, this is not the fine, this is court cost.
That's the standard if I was speeding, but
If you have if you have a moving violation, which may be
Right.
speeding, stop sign, something like
Right.
that. So any of those, you get put into our system, this is a state fee that we have to charge you.
you automatically pay the 115, and then however fast you were going determines what your fine is, and you pay
As
it.
of last year. For
Right,
next
right,
year,
right,
that's all going up 5. But yeah, so the reason why I said it's a trick question, because you said, well, what is our fee? Well, our fee is this, the 63.
What is the total fee that
But
the
the total
person
fee is
pays?
this. But this kind of gives you a breakdown, so you kind of can see what we talked about.
Because the rest of it, between the 120 and the 68 in 2025 is state fees and this, that, and the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, state mandated.
Computer funds
Yeah,
and
the only thing we
indigent
control
driver,
is this,
blah, 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 drug
and then the fine.
enforcement.
That's all we control.
Right.
For moving. Now, you get a not moving, you have the same thing, but you kind of get rid of some of these, because they don't apply. And then
Right.
criminal, some of those don't apply, and parking, none of those apply other than computer funds.
Right. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I think this is a great idea. The only way people learn, unfortunately, is for things to be painful.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. As an example, I had a lady here that was caught driving without operator's license, her third time in a month. Now, when you hear her story, you understand why she's doing it. She done something wrong in the past, had to get an SR 22, forgot to make her payment on time. Lost her SR 22, which then, whatever court did that. Single mom, 4 kids, has to go to work. No one to, she lives out in the middle of BFE, drives through Pleasantville to go to work, got caught. Well, before us, she got caught by Lancaster, continued to drive. Before that, she got caught by Perry County, continued to drive. She has to make a decision every day. Do I get fired for not going to my job, or do I do
Not my
this?
kids stuff.
Yeah. Again, it's not right. She still has to pay the fines. But, it's like, it's not because she's doing something malicious, she's making a decision. Then she just keeps getting caught in it. It's probably one of those people that tries her best to get ahead and.
She also tried with speeding or a stop sign too.
Yes,
Which
yeah, it
is
was
how
more.
she got caught.
Yeah.
Well,
So it
if you're
wasn't
gonna
like
be-
she just
Yeah.
was coming through
If you're
town
gonna do
and they ran her
something
plate.
illegal, then you better be smart.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying, it
Yeah.
wasn't like one of the other cases that we had where they just happened to run plates and it just happened to be the
Yeah.
bad, you know what I mean? Like there was no other offense other than they noticed something
Wrong
off and
time,
they
wrong
ran the
place.
plates.
Wrong
Yes.
space, wrong-
This lady
Was committing a crime.
was
Yeah.
committing a crime and just so happened to not have her
Yeah.
own.
yeah, but I don't think she's a person that's just like screw the law and do whatever I want.
No.
She makes a conscious decision every day. It's either go to work or not feed my kids, basically.
Sounds like she needs to.
Yeah, no, we gave her some resources to get some help and things like that, so, and that's the other part we do here, that we try to get them help where we can, so.
See, I can be nice when I need to.
All right, so any questions over this? Nick has read it, Nick authored this with me, so he's on board with it. And he did get a copy of this, same one you have in front of us, and he's good to go on it, so if there's no questions, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
So Corey and Sarah. Roll call.
Vote. Councilman Mason?
Yes.
Councilman Pangborn?
Yes.
Councilman Harrier?
Yes.
Councilman Wharton?
Yes.
Councilman Henry?
Yes.
All right. In your packet, you also got the sample letter that Sam is going to send out. You guys wanted a letter sent to all the different residents about those new charges. You have that in front of you. If you have any comments, you don't have to read it real quick now and give us comment, but take it home, read it. If you have comments, questions, send it to Sam. We can look at it, but we try to keep it as high level as we can, show the impact, but also share information of, hey, we are charging you some more, but in relationship to where we are with other villages, kind of give that information as well. Because sometimes people are just like, well, I'm gonna move Thurston. Here's Thurston's cost, you know, you make that determination if that will be true for you or not, type thing. And again, it's always nice to show people support of this.
Can I ask you a question? Is there a reason why we chose to residential and commercial?
For the sewer and water debt. So, short answer to that, so if you wanted to like do something different, you have to do a study. You have to hire a professional to do a study. If we do it the way we're doing it, you don't have to hire a professional to do a study. So like City of Lancaster, I'm gonna use them as an example. City of Baltimore, or Village of Baltimore too, because they do the same thing. They charge more for commercial, but it's based on how much property you have under roof and how much you have paved that's in,
Yeah.
I forget what the fancy, yeah, but they had to do a study to come up with that. I mean, everyone's costs also go up tremendous. We're just looking to cover our debt, not, you know,
We don't really have that much commercial in town to really.
yeah. Well, and also even impacted their residential too, because like, they were gonna go with something X, but then when the other company done their thing, it's like, oh, no, you need to charge this, and it's like,
Blew it all out.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, there are gonna be people that are gonna be.
Oh, no, I get it.
I'm okay with it, I mean, we gotta do what we have to do in order to pay
Yeah,
to live.
all right. One last thing, I know Michelle's not here, but we did get our results back from our audit, that Finney has been talking about. We did get 3 findings, and one of the findings is, which we already took care of this year, is when we get grant money, even though we don't physically collect the money in, it does not, she doesn't even know about it other than we know. We weren't putting it into our accounting system to show it went through our system, even though it didn't. We changed that this year because she found it out before this went through.
Yeah.
So, but they dinged us on us because they done the audit for 2022, 2023. They didn't find it was done. We received grant money, so we got a material weakness finding on that. That's pretty much has been fixed. One of the things that she got dinged on too, I don't wanna say she, we, because again, I created the budget, right? And I see all those pretty numbers out to the side. That's what this has to come into play. So, all these numbers out to the side of our budget, here represent something based on state law, okay? And you have to read this document to try to put them together. And then you'll go through here and say, okay, this is what we want to spend our money on, so just use general fund. I'm gonna spend money out of the general fund, so it comes out of the general fund, so it's a 1,000 account, that's easy, right? And let's just say it is for the office of the mayor, like I'm going to do something. I'm going to hire a secretary, okay? I'm not hiring a secretary, I'm just using this as an example. Go down here to, I gotta go past the revenue.
The book is like 300 pages,
Um,
and you gotta be a rocket scientist to picture.
So then we go into programs. So our next revision code is a program.
This is like,
It is.
It is very much.
Okay, where am I at in all this stuff and where does it impact? You know, does it fall under security of persons, public health services? So a secretary is not security. She's not public health, or they are not public health. They're not leisure time activities, or they shouldn't be. Community environment. You know, they're not utilities. So you go down here, there is one for. Fall under me as the mayor, so her program, their program is 710.
so it's 1,000 dash
Se-
710,
And
and then a dash.
then I break it down even further, okay? But see what you have to go through here, and I'm using secretary because it's kind of easy to, you know, go through.
Not anymore, right, with it.
I have a couple of them on the, and when I say I have, it's from me, and it's also from the town doing the exact same thing for 20 years that no other auditor has said was wrong. Or they said it was wrong, but council didn't do something, type thing. So again, we gotta do a little bit better at making sure that our coding is right. So one of our things is, so you saw me, I had interest of $6,000 into our general account for the interest payment. We made an interest payment for something similar, but we just took it out of principal versus interest. Principal is the note, interest is interest, right?
But the prior
So
auditor
that was fine.
told me it was fine, just to break it down, like, at the top you can write like you're making one monthly payment on the principal and it's $1,000, and then your interest is $50. So the payment-
Our prior,
Yes,
That was
prior
the question, yeah.
auditor.
this
Yes.
auditor.
That's the way we did it.
You want everything broken down into
Yeah.
ABC, alphabet.
Yeah. And some of them make sense, because again, we just
Yes.
didn't have it labeled right, and some of it's like prior auditor said it's fine. So, but again, that was one of our findings. We'll work on that. Then,
No, you don't.
and then our POs, when we do purchase orders, we have them now, those two, because they have definitions of what they mean, what they could be used for. It looks like we've used some incorrectly, not because they didn't have the same effect, it's just, so I'm gonna give them a make-believe scenario, because I don't think it's true, because I can't find one. They don't give us an example of one. They're just saying that
They just tell you.
10 out of 37 polled failed. Meaning it wasn't the right PO number. But they won't tell us what 10 to go back and like, okay, why did we call it that? So a super basic certificate. That is by supply. $5,000. And that's what's on our budget. She's gonna do a super blanket PO for $5,000 worth of supplies. It can be used at any event, we have set up. Any event up to $5,000. And it should have been, we only buy it for hardware for the exact same thing, but because now it's only one vendor, not multiple, it should have been a blanket certificate for hardware for $5,000. Does that make sense?
But then once you tag it to one company, you can't use it for another. So that's why I always did blankets.
It's like writing a check with Bob Harrier, Corey Harrier can't cash it.
Correct.
Yeah, and I'm just using that as a make-believe example, because again, we can't find the example. We're gonna have to go through and figure it out, see if we can back in and say, like, do we have a misunderstanding side? Why we're thinking this PO number, this type of PO is used this way? But again, we've never gotten dinged on that before, not done anything different, we're just assuming it's a different opinion. But again, we gotta comply with it, you just don't throw it out. And then the last one is what we did, that supports, the ordinance. Like I said, the ordinance you pass on the piece of paper is at the fund level, that's what the county wants. They don't want our spreadsheet. The auditors want to see the spreadsheet. What we've done in the past with our is, we give them a copy of that spreadsheet. When we pass the ordinance, we pass this ordinance as this. And then attach that. The new auditors have a problem with that, because they don't know that you physically saw it. So now that we recorded that it's with the attached spreadsheet, it's in the minutes that you saw it, and you're approving it for the different fund levels. We will still attach it to this, and that right there should clear that up. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, other than that, pretty decent audit. They always find stuff, but again, you look at your material weaknesses and your findings, we got 4 of them. They always find something. And as long as they're not the same thing every time, and they're not detrimental, meaning someone's stealing money, so they say in here, we're accounting for stuff properly, it's just, we have some things to fix. So, it's just, you know, when we do the cemetery, I'll give you an example. Mayor's Court too. We just stood up Mayor's Court this year, so when they audit 2024, I guarantee you they're gonna find problems with Mayor's Court. Just because we're new at it. No one tells you what the rules are, they just say you can do it 86 different ways, choose one. Then the auditor comes in and says, oh yeah, you can do 6, but because you've done A, you can't do B. But no one tells you that.
And now we got the cemetery.
Yeah, and then
We
you're gonna
will
have the cemetery.
too. And that's what we'll live.
Just some explanation behind it, because again, if you know audit background,
That might help.
we're gonna have a meeting with them. We don't know yet. Yeah, so first cemetery to the township, because Ohio law, it cannot be given directly to us because it's not in our incorporated area. so it has to go to the township. The township doesn't want it. We want to expand, and we've always talked about expanding that. And we talked to cemetery owners, like, hey, let me in. They didn't want to do it. They're willing to give it to us, but because of the problem with ones that were annexing in, you can't do that. So, Pleasant Township will hold it. We'll go through an annexation process, then we'll bring it on. But, why they own it, they'll bury bodies if they have to, but they will not sell lots, they will not, it's a dead cemetery to them, literally, so, because they don't, other than upkeep cemeteries, that's all they do, they don't sell new lots, they don't, they don't maintain an active cemetery, they just close them, so.
If anything happens to me, I will be.
We're working out. Yeah, there's pine
I
trees
don't wanna
that I
be
got.
going under a pine tree, they have pine needles, I wanna be under an oak tree.
Oh.
Put me in the back.
Oh, well, that's all weeds back there, weed trees, but yeah.
What kind of trees in your backyard?
Katama tree, put it.
There you go.
Yeah. You'll be there beside Sven.
Right, me and Sven.
I'll be digging you up.
Any questions? I just took a little bit longer than what we normally do for this meeting, but,
Real quick, where are we at on the water tower?
water tower, so, he was given until, actually, to discuss the water tower, you guys need a vote to go into executive session,
Okay.
which you guys can do. I just need a vote to go into executive session to,
Know about it.
yeah.
Let's do it.
So there needs to be a vote to go into executive session for possible litigation.
So do,
You guys need to make a vote to go into executive session for possible litigation.
okay. I don't know.
I just said Bob made the motion, was that what?
I'll second
Bob-
it.
Okay,
Make the motion.
Bob made the
I'll
motion,
second it.
let me write this down before I
Oops.
go. And Corey second. Alright, President Trump, Councilman Avery,
Yes.
Councilman Van Horn, Councilman Taylor, Councilman Moore. Yes. Councilman Henry.
Yes.
It is 7:38.
So do you want us to leave and just turn the recorder off?
Everyone can stay. We
Just turn the
We
recorder
just
off?
need to shut the recorder off?
Okay.
Or